let me know when we're all good.
Is there no crash emoji?
Yeah, he did use a fire emoji. Okay, we're live. Hello, Internet, and all the makers out there. I am Tusano, and this is the Make Something Wonderful podcast. Also with me tonight is Matthew Carpenter, well as our resident VP, Alisa, and also head of our...
I broke it.
Oh, what's up? You broke it already? So, we are a bit late tonight. We've been having some technical difficulties, but as far as it goes, we still want to bring you a great show, folks. So we went ahead and went live with it anyways, because if we're going to try and crash, we're going to crash live. Screw it. So, tonight, our topic of conversation, as per our guest, Allie, is storytelling and what it does for community building. Because after looking around I3 and seeing all the artifacts and trophies of victories we have, there's stories to be told there. And one of the things Alisa does for us is on her Twitch channel, That's Enough Glue. She tells stories every Wednesday and Sunday evening. So Allie, tell us about that. Tell us about the stories you've done and what you're trying to do in building a community around storytelling. So.
That's Enough Glue is a community of creation, and primarily I focus on non-copyrighted stories. So I have been telling stories, reading out loud. I'm just reading out loud stories of, oh goodness, Edgar Allan Poe, P.G. Wodehouse. Right now, we're in the last chapters of Alice in Wonderland on Sunday nights. And one of the big things about all of this is being on Twitch and whatnot. I'm reading the story to everyone and showing the pictures. And it's kind of, I call it snuggle up story time, because while we're adults and everything else, at some point we kind of stop being read to, right? Like, okay, we're done, blah, 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 blah. Okay, here, Tale of Two Cities. Go and suffer through AP Lit or something, right? And we just hate reading, and no one's reading to us anymore, right? And we just kind of go, okay, it was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Can I just, And I just got tired of reading to myself. I read to myself a lot, and I found that it was kind of boring. And with my nibblings, I get this excitement of like reading stories to them and being like the little brown mouse, and I started sharing stories with them again, like really finding love again in stories and books. And I went, oh man, what if we could do that again, but with, I don't know, pick a book.
Yeah,
like, I mean, like, I've got all these old books on the shelf, and honest to goodness, Victorian writers, penny dreadfuls and stuff like that, those used to come out in just weekly subscriptions. It's an hour reading, but who does it? No one.
Yeah.
How do you find that reading those for others kind of changes the way that you're internalizing them? Because you said you've been reading kind of for yourself, those kinds of books for a while.
I find that I'm actually reading a lot more of them. And not only just reading a lot more of them, but like I'm finding the humor in it a lot more, because like my French is terrible, and so many of the stories that I'm reading, because they're pre-copyright and everything else like that, because of readers, there will be French in it, and
even if your French was good, it'd be a very different dialect of French being that old, I'm sure.
Sometimes. sometimes I'll be like, be reading and it'll be like, monsieur, bon, like I have no idea what I'm saying. And actually, one of my viewers is actually from France.
Oh, I bet
Yeah.
I love that.
and he gets a good chuckle out of that because I'm just like, I start my every session with like, my French is atrocious. And so it's kind of like one of this community things is like, yes, my French is atrocious. It's kind of become like a laughing joke. It's like, oh, your French is atrocious, but not as bad as this person's French.
That probably also makes it kind of interesting for the French speakers, right? Because we don't know what you're saying when you're speaking French, and they have trouble telling what you're saying when you're speaking French too.
So you need to bridge a language gap there.
There you go. Yeah, we're confusing everybody equally.
Yeah. That's the way
Kind
to
of, yeah.
confuse everyone.
And some of the other things is with all of that, like the some of the writers even suppose Edgar Allan Poe, some of the works he didn't put in the rest of the name. It was just implied from his writing who it was. So I've been making up names and having to remember, like, what was the name that I used here? Or I've been doing a lot of practicing of accents, so that like while I'm a character or whatnot, it'll be like, or a voice or something like that. I'll if it's a young lady who's like having to be some way, or like she said demurely or something, and I have to like kind of read ahead but not read ahead. It's very hard because it'll be like, she said demurely, and like you'll have this whole line, but she said demurely, so you can't be like, I am very upset. She said
I'd have to
demurely.
stop
Well,
and look at what demurely meant, and then I'd have to read the line.
Yeah. So you're almost doing the job of
you
a
can't
voice
do
actor.
that. Like when you're reading live,
Yeah.
it's different.
Absolutely.
It's very different. And it's very fun too.
Yeah. I've enjoyed tuning in to some of the stories you did, like requesting. I remember one of the first nights or second, it was somewhere you were still early on into doing this, and I requested the golden bug, and I tuned in for that. Yeah, and I immediately regretted my decision when I realized, oh, some of this didn't age so well. So
yeah, that was an interesting, because I read a lot of him, I don't know, middle school, so that's a good 20 years ago. And I just kind of, read it and just went, okay, the language is what it is. And with the golden bug, for example, there's an entire character who, aside from just adding an accent, a girl who wrote in the dialogue, and the character is an emancipated slave that Edgar Allan Poe wrote entirely in this sort of jargony Southern language, and you can kind of see where some of the language is not something I would use. So that was a kind of troubling way of something that I would kind of pause when I'd come to the word and be like, nope.
nope.
Just let everybody's brain fill that in.
Yep.
And keep going.
Yeah.
Or I would eventually I would just slip into a little less of a troubling word, just saying like negro or something like that, because it was appropriate for the era, and eventually just keep the storyline going without losing that character's losing the writing of that particular
making it acceptable for the current times, right?
Yeah, because
you need a little foot pedal that you can hit the beep, right, and out.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's a storytelling aspect, and you know, you go to Edgar Allan Poe. You got to understand, like, he's Virginian post Civil War. Like, you know, you can't just erase history.
I think Warner Brothers had it best when they put that disclaimer before some of their cartoons that had the same issue of saying we're just presenting these because this was the how the work was in that time period, and it's not an excuse, but more like to edit it would be to like cut the work short or there was something. I forget the exact, but people will remember if they like Google it, like Warner Brothers tag or whatever, like, or discretionary. Yeah. So, but
well, the big thing, especially the Gold Bug and Edgar Allan Poe. Edgar Allan Poe is one of the first writers of that was regularly writing lines of adventure tales and mystery.
Yeah.
And really publicly, just to make a living. And yeah, it's one of the staple stories of getting you into that kind of tale structure. So it's not, that story is not going to go away because of that staple. Now, a lot of the other stories around it, yeah, sure, absolutely, they're going to go away. But because of its landmark, just kind of like Sigmund Freud, we're not going to stop talking about him because he's one of the first psychologists to indicate, oh yeah, what happens in childhood reaches over to adulthood. Gooder. Even though a lot of his other ideas were.
Yeah. Also, Matt, for some reason you're just real quick. Microphone says it's muted. I don't know if that's real or not, but
I don't want you to be able to hear my monster can crankling while I'm drinking it.
Okay. Well,
little fourth wall break there, but that's all right.
No, that's all right. That's what we do. So,
my Canada Dry and my.
Yeah,
you had more forethought than I did.
Yeah, I have a big old jug of water, but either way, speaking of what we do, and speaking of non sequiturs, either way, one of the reasons I wanted
never.
What?
Non sequitur, never.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of what we do, I want to take a brief break to remind people that like who we are and what we're doing tonight. The three people you see before you, myself included, not Nate, but him included. Okay, the joke got out of hand. The metaphor went off the rails. We're all members of a hackerspace called makerspace called i3 Detroit, located at 1481 Wordsworth Street in Ferndale, Michigan. Given that, I brought Allie here to also talk about the power of community and stories. And like she's building this community, Allie, as you said, by building a narrative, and by reading sequential chapters of Alice in Wonderland and reading through that book, you're building a community that's following that narrative. And we might not necessarily know where the story of I3 is going at the moment. We know that it's by no means anywhere near over. And we have stories that we tell throughout the space. And so I kind of want to hear from your end, what and let's ease it more towards the fun of things. What do you think the best story, or what do you think your best story about I3 is? Like, how do you explain the community? What story do you tell to get the feel of our community across to other people?
Sorry, my
right.
dad texted me.
I'm gonna be honest.
To my dad, things go crazy. It's important.
I'm gonna be honest. I look at my phone, and just a shout out to our community. We don't necessarily have a chat mod at the moment, like looking through our stuff to feed us info. I look at my phone to make sure if anyone is texting me to see like, oh, is there something wrong with the stream or whatever else.
Yeah.
So if anyone ever sees me on camera looking at my phone, that's why. No disrespect. I'm serving double duty as
Yeah,
a
so I have no idea what's going on the chat. So yeah, I should probably open that up at some point to like, hey, if anyone has any specific questions for me or something, poke
Where
at
are you
a
directing people for
comment.
that? Is that the YouTube chat, or are you talking like Slack,
Um,
or where do you want to?
If I try
I
to
have-
open this
I
up
have
on my
people-
computer right now, it will explode my computer. So,
So,
Yes, Thomas.
sorry, what I want to tell people is if they would like to chat with us, they can go to the i3 TV channel on Slack. They can go to the i3 Discord, which we'll link in the video description at some point. Or we can throw it up in the YouTube chat. And or even the YouTube chat. I'll try to. Well, I can't check the YouTube chat, but
you can't check the YouTube chat? Why can't we check the YouTube chat, sir?
I have to have it up in another window. But you know what? Let's do another bit of a fourth wall break here, and I'll bring up the.
This is only
YouTube.
episode number 3. We're still learning how to podcast.
Yeah, we're still learning how to do this. You think we're experienced at this? Uh-oh. Yeah, we're still. Yeah.
We do officially have twice as much experience at the end of this episode doing it remotely than we do all sitting in the same room, which is
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, we're more experienced in this way. To be honest, though, this makes for more guests. So, hey, Jan! Hi, Jan! So, yeah, we don't always necessarily get.
I now have it up on my phone. I'm gonna put it like next to my web thingy.
All right.
So, did you want to talk
kind
about
of-
stories from I3, Thomas? Because
sorry, that's where we
want to do
we're
that.
getting.
You're asking me a question, and I so rudely interrupted.
It's all right. So, what I asked you, Allie, because you're the storyteller, what is your favorite story to explain the I3 community to other people? Like, what is a story about us that explains us the best?
Story about us that explains us the best.
Yeah.
Oh, give me a moment. Story about I3 that explains us the best. Oh, I like our most triangular award.
The triangular award. Okay.
Is Kevin watching? I expect a comment from Kevin if he's watching.
So for people who don't know what the most triangular award is right now, it is pretty much the most I3 story there is as of right now. And the most triangular award is actually a roughly pyramidal
Roughly triangular.
block. It's triangular on one of the faces. That one of our members, Kay, formed to hand off to someone who has contributed to the space in a way of good things. It doesn't have to be like, I don't know, fixing the thermistor in the front heater or anything like that, which hasn't been done, or anything for the space in general. It could be for a community member or whatnot. But award itself and what it's meaning is the story that is the most I3 thing. It is how the most triangular award came to be. This comes from the expansion. Our member, Mike Fink, and my housemate, Mark Ferlin, were working on the firewall between the expansion, and they were cutting out the old windows on the upper sections, the two. And some of those were just glass, some of them were kind of cardboardy things, and some of them had like metal reinforcements between them. And you had to cut them out. And at some point while they were cutting these out, they were just cutting them out in triangular sections. And the metal was pretty okay. that they were cutting out. And at some point, because these pieces were not small, they were pretty good pieces to practice with on the welding zone or something, and they were pretty good material. These pieces of metal were being handed to the individual members who were just around. And at some point, some of the pieces got used up and other things, but there was this one particular piece that was left. And it just was left. And people kept trying to hand it off. It was triangular. Roughly triangular piece. And they just kept trying to hand it off to somebody. And to be like, do you want this? Like, no. And then you'd be left with this, and then in the good old-fashioned way of, oh, can you hold on to this? You'd be handed something, and you would just hold on to something. And suddenly,
Yeah, the feel
you
how
had
heavy this is, right?
a triangular piece of metal.
Yep.
And then you just leave it on the table. But then there was this triangular piece of metal, and this went on for months. And eventually, I don't know what happened to the triangular piece of metal.
Yeah.
But it eventually got to Kay's attention. And because his housemate was Mark was the most common to try to hand off this triangular, Kay decided to make a most triangular award. Because Kay was the one who was learning to weld and to work in the machine shop and everything else, and made an actual triangular award that could not actually be just thrown away.
Yeah.
But is handed off as an honor. And whenever it is accepted, thus far, it is whoever accepts it groans. Even though the reason for accepting it is actually something very good that they have done in general, which is a very, very I thing.
Yeah. Oh. Oh man. I had not known the origin behind it, and I've been confused on the last few meetings as to why this was going around. And so I'd seen it handed off a couple times, and I've just been like, what? And so now I understand that
And
Mark.
now it's been in enough meetings that it's a tradition, and so now you can't get rid of it.
Yeah, and well, it also makes.
You couldn't get rid of the first piece in the first place.
Yeah. It also, to me, it makes, by Mark doing this, it makes a tremendous amount of sense, because Mark has this thing where he'll just walk up to somebody, and he's done it to me on several occasions, and he'll hand me something. He'll just put out his hand, and your psychology, like, he knows that hardwired trick where if you just put out your hand with something in it, the other person will take it and then act confused. So the fact, yeah, and he'll just walk. I'm like, and I'll normally ask him, why are you handing this to me? And and I'll always ask it, and the response is always the same. He's just, cuz, and then he just walks away. I'm like, dude, what am I?
But you ask it as you grab for it, so by that point it's already done.
Yeah.
You've already committed.
You now have the most triangular.
Yeah. So either way, it makes a tremendous amount of sense that this tradition is Mark's doing. So.
And that is why Mark was the first to receive the most triangular award.
Yeah. Of course. So.
Mind you, Mark was doing a lot for the space.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Do a lot for the space. So it's like, it's this tremendous honor, but when you get this triangular piece, you're like, and why do I have this triangular piece of metal? What? No! It's a
Those are the best
it's
kind of
those
awards. The ones
small
where it's like, yay, kind of things, right?
exactly. And so that's a it's a very it's a community thing, you know. You have the community and everything else, but also there's this huge, rich story involved,
I think
and
that's what's so
that's
great
why
about
when
just the
people
shop
get
in
it,
general, right? Anything hanging from the ceiling, right, has just grab Nate and point at it, and you'll get 30 minutes of a story out of it, of why it's there and how it got there, and the crazy things that whoever made it also did, and it's everything's connected, you know.
yes,
Oh boy. Sit down.
our
This is gonna be a
our
story.
bunk couches before the Lego movie.
Yeah, that's another one. And we seem to have created memetics around the space that are really, really great. Like everyone, Nate, I'm pretty sure has the thing of "Don't worship me," and yet we have an oil painting of him in the hallway outside the E-Lab, and we go, "This is one of our founders." and
And it looks like
so,
Jesus in it, which is terrible but wonderful.
yes. So either way, so we've built our own meme system, which is kind of hilarious. And certain sayings.
I mean, I would totally traffic in memes that are painted by Kevin.
Oh yeah.
It's like
Only memes that are painted by Kevin. I mean,
we have an artist and programmer in our space by the name of Kevin Flory, and he does oil paintings and all that sort of stuff. And yeah,
I mean, I could probably survive with the only reaction GIF being the Renaissance, honestly.
oh man. And then to see some of the ones that have come about in group chats and Slack, like there are stories. I'm pretty sure there's a story somewhere behind the party parrot that we have, the party parrot emoji, and it's probably not the same one as when the party parrot originally came around. So
yeah.
So now, Matt, I want your favorite story explaining i3 to others, or even a moment where you're like, I can't explain that. That's just i3, and like someone just ran by screaming, and you're like, I've got no. That's just typical.
Yeah. Does it have to be a story that I was here for? Because I've heard the Red Bull Creation Challenge story several times, and I don't know if you're intending to have Nate at some point. He'd be able to explain it better than I could. But that's still a story that I like.
Yeah.
That
well,
one.
I mean, he's watching. He's in the i3 TV channel now, commenting.
And he's gonna know if I tell it wrong then.
Yeah, we'll get feedback from him. He'll probably jump on Discord and be like, "Let me in that call, damn it! I'm gonna correct you." But no, tell it.
Well, maybe I'll just go for Maker Faire instead then. So,
okay.
Particularly last year's Maker Faire Detroit. So, I haven't really looked to see what the diversity of our audience is, but for any of you who are not aware, Detroit Maker Faire is held every July at the Henry Ford Museum in Dearborn. i3 also hosts the official after party, so awesome. You should definitely come to that if you ever come to Detroit Maker Faire, which you should definitely go to. Every year, it seems, regardless of the amount of planning that we try to do, it always ends up being a mad dash the Friday before to get everything there and get everything set up and make sure things show up on time and all the infrastructure is there. This year, that was further complicated by the fact that we also had the what would you call that castle? There's got to be a name for the castle that Jan and David.
It's they call it it's cosplay castle. It's something.
Cosplay castle, costume castle. Yeah.
Jan is watching.
Jan's probably typing it all caps into the comments. So.
Yeah, Jan, comment in the YouTube.
It's got cats or something in it because she does her.
Well, I can explain the castle. I just didn't know if it had a real name, and I know it does. I just don't know what it is.
It has a name.
When we get it, one of you can say.
It's based off her camp and everything else that she does for Lakes of Fire and.
Yes. And so it had been at Lakes of Fire, and then it came to Maker Faire. We always have a large tent.
Cosplay Castle. There we go. Copycats cost.
There you go.
Just typed it in.
There it is. So this castle came with all the other projects. Normally, it's a big deal to get all the projects set up, but normally none of the projects are larger than, half of a table. This thing, and we can post pictures probably linked in like the comments or something. This thing was huge. And so
Costume castle, sorry.
Costume castle. That's a good name for it. It's very descriptive. Some alliteration. I like that. So in addition to setting all that up, a lot of us take, that half day on that day to set things up and get everything ready.
My video's
So
frozen
we
again.
are, in addition to all the things we normally do, building this castle. So there's a bunch of us. It's held together with aluminum tape, a lot of aluminum tape, and some rope and that kind of stuff. And so we are constructing this whole castle, and it's just really awesome to watch. Like a bunch of us, a bunch of just like hacker. I'm going to use the word hacker, but I mean maker. You can use either one. Putting this thing together, and it's like David and like two other people, I think, know exactly how it goes together. The rest of us are like, where do I put tape? How do I stack this stuff? Where do these pieces go? And it's like watching like one of those Nat Geo videos with like ant colonies, where it's like, oh, they all know what they're doing. I don't know how they all know what they're doing. And so the whole thing gets built up, and in a very i3 fashion. The next day after we got the whole thing set up, it was extremely windy, and it stayed up for half the day, I think. But it was then it turned into we got to do a semi-controlled demolition, which was even more exciting than putting it up. And so I think that's kind of an interesting kind of.
Jen says so much tape.
Yeah. But that was kind of a fun kind of experience. You have to it kind of captures, I think, the way that we build stuff, the way that not everything always works out, and yet we still have a lot of fun with that anyway. Like we put up signs that the castle was temporarily invisible, or different things like that once it was gone, and just those kinds of little things. So it's a little joke things like that. I would say, if I can cheat and do a twofer here.
Yeah, no, go for it.
Nomcons and the kind of Michigan Makerspace Operators things, I find both of those to be really great i3 kind of stories too. They're not so much i3 as much as just makerspaces in general.
Yeah.
But that really kind of speaks to you go to some of these events, and Thomas, you were at the last NomCon. You saw this.
Yeah.
We're really well recognized and all over really, and a lot of that comes down to the fact that we had such really effective and very generous founding members who were willing to help a lot of these younger spaces, in addition to networking with the older spaces to really build us a solid foundation. And sharing that with other spaces and kind of seeing what other spaces are doing is something that I really enjoy about the space. So I think I took more time. I kind of cheated there a little bit, but I will give that back to you.
No, that's one of my favorite things too. Is it's been a point of pride for me is hearing the reason I wanted to go to the second NomCon is I heard about the recognition we had at the first one in New Mexico, and I now have this life goal of being a maker, influencer, folk hero, or whatever. And I hear this little tidbit that someone else is telling that when we were at NomCon, someone else elbows whoever they're with and goes, "Oh, i3's here. This has to be legit." And I'm sitting there. I'm like, "Okay, so we're and that's when things sank in for me. I was like, "All right, we really have to." Yeah, Al, you're laughing, but I was chomping at the bit after I heard that. I was like, I have to go to NomCon. I have to do more. I have to, the air of legitimacy that we gave NomCon apparently for someone else was enough of a story for me to get behind going and seeing what good I could do for the i3 community.
And it's interesting too. It's kind of a motivating factor that the pressure that puts on you, right? It's like, okay, I have to uphold this. I don't know who, it might have been Nate at one of our meetings, said something about being part of the space, just standing on the shoulders of giants or whatever, right? For like some of our alumni have been very, very knowledgeable and crazy smart people that have gone on to do some really awesome stuff. And that's a really neat group to be associated with. And it also, I mean, I don't know if it felt weird for you. It felt weird for me the times that I've gone to NomCon, because it was like, you know, the space gets recognized. I'm like, I've been a part of the space for like 3 years. I can't really say that. I don't know that I deserve that, the kind of reverence, but I appreciate it, and I'm happy to share whatever information that I can.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so that, I'm trying to think of one of my favorite I3 stories, and there's so many things that come to mind, and I'm trying to just like sort out one from all of them. Oh shoot.
I mean, you probably really love the live stream, I would imagine.
I did. Well, I mean,
Love the
as you
live
said, the live stream.
Through the tired haze.
Oh my god. All right, first off, I'm gonna say something. All right, is Allie was absolutely frigging instrumental. I came up with this harebrained freaking scheme, and everyone, what still surprises me to this day, and I feel like I owe half the people a debt of gratitude and the other half an apology,
And a drink.
because even if it turned out being successful, it was a hot mess that I pushed for relentlessly.
What else
And-
describes I3 better than a hot mess?
Yeah. So, I mean, we did it. We frigging did it. We did 3 days straight, and I'm like, I am so proud of us. But we have had a 7, 8, 9, 10-month burnout from anyone doing anything else. So I will say right now to the entire community that's listening in that I am so grateful for each and every one of you who put your weight behind the live stream. I'm going to preface the story with that. All right. We were challenged by a prior member of our community who will go unnamed to do a 72-hour marathon live stream. I think we lost Allie for a minute, but she'll be. Oh no, she's back. All right.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
I just see your cat there for a second in your little icon.
Yeah, that's my cat Lexi. Sorry, continue.
So we were doing the $50,000 MEDC fundraiser, and we were challenged by a previous member of our community to jump the shark, more or less, to do a 72-hour crazy live stream marathon build that we were completely and utterly ill-prepared for, that members then stepped up to like fill in these shoes. These guys were amazing, and I did my best to help out and make this thing go off without a hitch. That all being said, we tried to build a mobile maker pedal pub. We had half the people worried that local legislation and police officers were going to pull us over because it didn't qualify as a roadworthy vehicle. We had another half of makers who wanted to build a RoboCop statue, which was already being done, but we wanted to do it out of junk and with donated materials. We had people who weren't even sure what was going on during the live stream, and then we had other members trying to fill out and block out the content by being there. Like, so graciously, the cosplayers showed up with like a dozen people and just sat in commons working on their costumes while we whizzed cameras around them, like trying to get them to talk about what they were doing. We had things going on in woodshop and welding and whatever else, and it was a crazy hot mess. We had people who had been up for 36 hours straight before it had even started. And then Allie steps up and decides to be our production manager and bring order to chaos. And then our current production guy for this, Rob, who is the one behind the camera, bless his soul, he's fantastic. He's the one hosting our stream tonight. And he does great work on the fly by the seat of his pants.
I'm kind of tag teamed with the help of the technology of Good and his guidance for the OBS and everything else, and so kind of Rob and I would overlap for like 2 hours, and then Rob would like day shift and like I would night shift, and like it would be like, oh, okay, hey, hi, And then I'd be, and yeah, and then it was also managing, like, oh, this person doesn't want to be on camera. Okay, we need to move the camera, so, like,
You
yeah.
should have just made a bunch of Guy Fawkes masks, honestly, in retrospect.
So, okay, let's move the camera so like this person can't be seen, and like do all of that other stuff, and then because of like, and then picking up, okay, let's have this schedule and that schedule, and all right, this content and that content, and absolutely cannot forget good. I mean, Greg he had everything for the technology up ahead of time, and then he was helping teaching us on the fly, so that like I could do what I was doing, and then Robert can do what he was doing. It was absolutely insane.
And the other thing that comes to mind is we had members like yourself. You're saying you're actually using tonight one of the phones from the live stream. We used an IP camera setup. We would take the phone. We'd have a cell phone pointed at person. We'd have an app streaming the video feed to a computer that was then broadcasting it to YouTube. And so we had like a two-step. And we hodgepodge this all together in a day. So like the feed of it all and the story behind it was just the ingenuity it took to do all of that.
Yep, we had, and then we didn't just have just one camera phone. The whole Maker, when it comes to Maker stories and whatnot, that's kind of one of those things. It's not just one phone that we had running. I had my personal cell phone, and then my old cell phone, and then people would come in during their shift and they'd hook up their cell phone, and then I had one of my old Wi-Fi cameras, and then someone had one of their old laptops as an IP camera, and then another person would come in with their own during their shift, and we'd get the app running, and then we'd log them in, and then we'd have to set it all up.
If you want to have one camera
their
dedicated
camera,
to a pot
and so
for
this
an
is
hour or 2 hours.
incredibly Maker
I
oriented.
know you were going to talk about
Everything
PotCam.
like coming together this very moment, and there's someone in the like production in the media lab being the producer at this moment, making sure it all gets together, and we'd lose a camera.
Yeah.
So because that's their phone, that's their life.
Yeah.
And so and then people were bringing in their tripods and their selfie sticks and everything else. So like it was this complete wonderful sort of hodgepodge, and it taught a lot about what we were as a Maker community of being able to bring things together, but also taught us as an individual makerspace what we could have on hand to be able to do this sort of thing for our space individually. Like right now, Robert is working on a mobile media lab with the same kind of equipment so it was this kind of learning experience that's actually improving our space.
Yeah, absolutely. It's led to this, which has been now a shelter in difficult times. Is we now can keep our community informed, keep spirits up. We can interact with people. For those uninformed, I'll touch on it briefly and leave it alone because I feel people are pretty much constantly reminded of it anyway. We're affected by Michigan's current state of emergency edict from our governor. So that means that I3 Detroit right now, the physical shop is closed down. The community is still very much active. We're still keeping in contact. We have a Discord up, which we'll eventually link. And if you'd like to help us out, if anyone's out there watching, i3detroit.org. If you scroll down a little bit down the page, there's a donate button. If there are any non-members watching who would like to take a look at what we're about. But either way, like we also had the community side of it. Like we had the logistical side of everyone having cameras and our tech being settled and our programming being taken care of. But one of the things that immediately that I pushed for when I brought up the live stream is, if you don't want to be on camera, I need people ready to do food, potluck style.
We had so much food.
Yeah. And that brings up the pot cam. I went out and spent 100, 180, I forget how much money on ingredients to make a chili on the live stream, and then make enough for the community, and brought cookware from home to
Which
make
was
this
excellent,
giant
by
pot
the
of
way.
what?
Which was excellent, by the way.
Thank you. I still have that recipe in my head. I kept to it, and I can redo it. It was a burnt sugar caramelized cognac and red wine chili.
We should have the whole thing recorded too, so I mean,
Yeah,
you can watch the Thomas Cooking
So
Hour.
somewhat.
yeah, that kind of like that sort of thing that is going to be something that we hold on to as people who have gone through that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. So, and there are so many people that not only made that happen, but so many things we learned, and so many things that we realized we should be doing as a community, to improve cohesion and to work together. So, I mean, we might see the return of that event in a different way. We're not doing a 72-hour ever again. I don't care. We're not, never.
I think we
never.
decided that 36 hours was maybe optimal.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was very doable.
I think
Yeah.
Towards the end of day
that is-
2 was when people started to get a little burned out, I think.
Yeah. And then the other thing was, I mean, it was cool to wake up in B-side, to roll out of a hammock in my pajamas and be like, oh, hey, I'm at I3. Like, that was cool. And that's the other thing, is people donated cots and hammocks, or lent us cots and hammocks to use. Yes, Allie, that was cool.
Yeah, I brought in my hammock camping set and everything else, and blankets and pillows, and I'm also like reading stories to people. Yeah, I'm not quite everybody's auntie, but yeah, I'm everybody's auntie.
I mean, you got to take advantage of the opportunity to sleep at the space, because you're not allowed to the rest of the year. This is your one opportunity.
Because it was literally for people's safety. Because sometimes, especially with how Tusano was being, is he wasn't safe to drive home.
Yeah. No, we had people like Santana and Kevin who were just, I am proud of how dedicated they were to it, but at the same time they scared me a little bit with that same passion. I was like, you guys go up. Like, Jody had caffeine mints, we had energy drinks on tap, basically. I was like, oh geez, strap yourselves in, this is a wild ride. Let's
I mean, I was munching on crickets at some point, I think it was.
I was too. I had David had this weird thing about seeing me eat crickets, and by the end of the weekend, I was like, man, after everything I put everyone here through, I can see why you'd want to make me eat crickets. I understand it now, because this was hell. So I ate. I'm like,
just like, sure, I'll have some crickets, no problem. It'll be great.
yeah. So we will run a bit late, but I want to take a quick second to remind people, like, we have a sister podcast kind of deal with another makerspace that I want to remind people of. Sin Shop in Las Vegas has a wonderful podcast they are doing with the Mighty Pong and Crux, and that does start in a couple minutes if you guys want to flip over. But we're going to be going a few more minutes because we started a bit late. And so
I could go hardcore and watch both at the same time.
Yeah. Or I mean, eventually we'll work on a thing where we just transition from one to another. But either way, if people want to go ahead and give them the viewership after we're done here, please.
See, this is when we also need to get on Twitch, man.
Yeah.
Because then we can just raid over.
Yeah, maybe that's the solution that we need, is just to get on Twitch and have our Twitch viewers tuned to them. But
we'll save that for episode 4.
You finish your stream and then you just raid them over. And it's okay. I do Twitch.
Yeah. So so basically we need you and Rob to stay on call and figure that out, or us 4 to stay on call and figure it all out. So
for the show.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, why not? So no, but
you just all need me here more often, that's all.
Maybe. So what else was there? So yeah, but seeing the community come out around that, and now it's a story we all tell, and we say this is, this what it's about is doing these crazy things, and we can do it because hell, why not? So
Because hackerspace, right? That's the whole idea.
Yeah, we hack it together.
exactly, just MacGyver, just everything. So I'm trying to think of like,
I mean, what are we doing?
yeah, I remember real quick one of the things that happened that I immediately felt like we were in an 80s movie, or like the Little Rascals, like when they're going, I don't know what when we're going around picking up materials for the pedal pub, and like it just felt like we were out there picking, and then we were bringing it back, and we were having people take it apart or whatever else.
How many
And
bikes did you end up with, out of curiosity?
too many, and then trying to wrangle all of it, and then we didn't end up using it, and I still need to go and like give a thank you present to Detroit Urban Artifacts, and God, I haven't forgotten about any of the people who were gracious enough to give us materials or to help us out. And we need to reach out to Detroit Urban Artifacts too, to get him on here to talk a little bit at some point.
I mean, there's a lot going on in Detroit. There's a lot of potential guests out there.
Yeah, no, I mean that's what I'm hoping. I mean, we have 8 to 10 people watching now, but I'm hoping we convince these guys with just what we're talking about. Not even audience draw. Just come on, talk to whatever, and then put it out there to your audience as promo material.
It's a city of city built on people building stuff, right?
Yeah.
So people making things. That's the entire Detroit story.
And look at
I mean, how can we build better communities through storytelling? Come on, that was literally one of the questions to be for tonight.
Yeah. So I mean, this is exactly
all their stories.
Yeah. So, and maybe if we just start telling them, people will just listen. I mean, especially now when we have more or less a captive audience. Like, I have to be somewhat humorous about it. Yeah, so either way, we have stories, we have the opportunity to create content, we have the opportunity to build stronger communities, and just by telling stories either about those communities and instilling values, or by encouraging people to make new values, either way. So that's my thoughts on it. But Ali, did you have?
Why not both?
Yeah, ¿por qué no los dos? So, Ali, did you have any kind of closing things? Do you want to tell people more about your social media and where what you got coming up next?
Well, so when it comes to storytelling, my story time is just snuggle up story time once a week. Wednesday nights is short stories. It's an hour to an hour and a half, 10 p.m. So it's a little later, but it's meant for you adults. Come on. And Sundays is chapter stories. So it's kind of earlier. It's 8 p.m. So if you want to do it with family, you can. Mm-hmm. And we're finishing up Alice in Wonderland this weekend. Mm-hmm. I'll be reading the last 3 chapters of that. We just met the Queen of Hearts last week. So we're gonna, and we just started, and she had a croquet match. But we're going from there into the last 3 chapters of Alice in Wonderland, and we'll probably continue on for into April with Alice and Through the Looking Glass after that. But that's 8 p.m. on Sundays. Do show up on pretty much pick a social media as That's Enough Glue, because really, is that enough glue? I promise you, at some point, it is enough glue. At some point, it will be enough glue.
Oh, is the username not meant to be a question? It's not like, that's enough glue?
Yes.
It's a
That's enough
statement.
glue, hon.
Okay.
It's enough glue. I
And that's why.
promise.
And that's why I named this episode "Enough Glue, but Never Enough Stories."
There will be enough glue at some point. But I'm on Instagram, Twitch, Facebook has a page. It kind of sometimes gets updated. But besides reading stories, I'm also a maker. I work on sewing machines. I paint. Sometimes I just read out loud other random things on other nights just to read. If I'm reading and I'm like, hey, why don't I just share this weird thing? A couple of nights ago, I read out loud how to properly use a chef's knife. I was reading the beginning of a cookbook I was reading the beginning of the very first published actual cookbook from like 1835.
Yeah.
So I have those sort of things.
Was that?
So yeah.
Was that by any chance that like the Kentucky? Was it like something called the Kentucky Housewife or something?
It's Franny Farmer's something. It was a school cookbook.
Oh, okay. I just
But
remember. Oh, no, go ahead. Sorry.
but yeah, there was another one published afterwards. That was a Kentucky Housewife cookbook, and then both of those helped inspire what eventually became Betty Crocker's cookbook.
Yeah.
Because I like old books, so I have a lot of old books at home. I actually buy a lot of old titles and reprints of old titles, so I actually have physical copies of some of the books that I read that are out of copyright. I don't always read from my Kindle. But yeah, I also have a TikTok where I don't know what I'm doing on TikTok, but I'm trying.
You read books like 2 sentences at a time?
Yeah.
A few sentences at a time. Yeah. Sometimes I put on bad accent. Right now is plague, so yeah. Because I've been quarantined before when I had the swine flu in England, so this is all old hat to me. And actually quarantined. I was dying. It was cool. I work on sewing machines, so I'll have a tear down on sewing machines. But yeah, I'm rambling because I'm actually not that good of a storyteller when I don't have a script.
Yeah, I mean, well, hey, to be fair, I'm working on getting our format down.
I was gonna say we only operate without scripts, so
yeah, it's purely improv. Everything you see.
Thomas calls me 5 minutes before we start, and that's all I know.
Yeah, just what are we in for this week? Okay, here it is. Go. So.
Wonderful.
I didn't realize I was signing up for
wonderful
improv.
over this. Wonderful, wunderbar. We can just keep saying wonderful in like 20 different languages.
So, all right.
You have a shirt that did that, just wonderful in a whole bunch of different languages. I don't know what happened to it.
You wanna speak us off the stage here, Thomas?
Yeah, I was about to say I'm gonna go ahead and take the reins and read us off. So folks, I'd just like to remind you, I have to have the YouTube stream up so I know everyone's positioning now. So I have Matt Carpenter off to this side of me, this way. I have Allie below me. All right. Yep, Allie's below me in here. And her Twitch information will be in the video description. I just gave it to our show producer, the wonderful Robert, who is the nondescript icon off in the bottom right corner. For the i3 Detroit I Talk Good icon. And so we have been Make Something Wonderful, and we hope that all of you are having a wonderful time out there, despite everything going on in the world. Please remember to stay positive. We will be creating content to keep not only you, but our community entertained, and inviting them on to talk about what they do so that everyone has a better sense of what's going on in this community. I hope that we can entertain you every week positively. And I have been Thomas Tusano. If you'd like to check out me or any of my stuff, It's Tom_Tusano, THOM_TUSANO on Instagram, the Tusano Trading Company on Facebook. And I'm just going to say really quickly, check out my artist Mikey, who did this wonderful t-shirt I've been wearing the whole time and why I've been puffing out my chest at random intervals. So yeah, exactly. Yeah. We support artists, and this is why I have makers on this podcast, is to give them a platform to talk about what they do. So thank you so much for tuning in. Matt, would you have anything you want to add?
Just remember to make wonderful things. We're all in this together, and nothing lasts forever, right? We'll get through this, and eventually things will be all back to normal. I am Carpenma, CARPENMA on Facebook, GitHub, and I guess I'll throw LinkedIn in there too. Why not? People still use LinkedIn. Sure, why not? I don't have an Instagram. I should get an Instagram at some point, probably.
Yeah, follow me.
Yeah.
There you go.
Go
Perfect.
follow Ali. Go follow Matt. Follow all these wonderful people.
We'll get Robert to link all these things in the description.
Yeah, and we'll get a Google Doc so Robert can just copy paste each week. So
we're gonna get organized. All right.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
my
hopefully.
goodness.
So I mean, all this free time. So
Exactly.
Rob, I'm gonna go ahead and say, play us off, and we'll see all you wonderful people next
Goodbye.
week.
Next week?
Next week.
Next month? Next
week.
year?
All of the above.
And Rob will let us know when we're clear.
I don't know what Spanish for
This
all
has been
three
Make
is,
Something
but-
Wonderful.